This is the Entrepreneur on Campus podcast. Let's go. On each episode, we talk about a new industry or market, including the entrepreneurial opportunities, the pains, and the surprises of that industry. Listen, the business world is so broad, and we are here to dissect all of the different ways that entrepreneurs make money.
Software, you make it one time and sell it 1,000 times.
E-com spaces, man, those things sell for like an 8x multiple. It's ridiculous.
Three main ways that we make money, and the primary one is actually ad sales.
The goal is usually to exit within 3 to 7 years.
I'm your host, Matthew Brown, and I've created this podcast to help you discover hidden opportunities. Thank you for tuning in, and here is today's episode. Welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur on Campus podcast. I'm super hyped to be here today, and today my guest that is joining me is Bruce Peck. Bruce, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, no problem.
So to tell you guys a little bit about Bruce, Bruce started a company called Doorstep nearly 3 years ago, starting in Idaho. They've now grown into both Utah and Idaho, and they've partnered with around 60 businesses. And this year, in April, they won the Idaho Entrepreneurship Challenge, so 2019. So awesome, Bruce. I'm excited to have you here. And I'd love to learn a little bit about Doorstep. Can you tell me what it is?
Yeah. So Doorstep's an app that makes it easy to find cool things to go do for date night. So essentially what we do is we partner with like a whole bunch of local businesses. So everything from like rock gyms to aquariums to ice castles. And we put together like packages, and then people can go on the app, they can figure out what they want to do for date night. Everything's at a discount and everything's for 2 people, and they just buy it straight on the app and they show it when they show up.
Huh. And you've partnered with 60 businesses. So will you go up to a business and just say, hey, we want to bring people to you? And so how is it benefiting the business?
So for businesses, like a major demographic that they're trying to reach is daters. When you think about it, like a lot of places are built solely for that. Like your bowling alleys and like the ice castles, stuff like that. Like they're built solely to attract those people.
Yeah.
And so a lot of what we've done is kind of bring in, like, we make it really easy to attract their audience and people that are interested in them. So we help a lot of unknown businesses get known, and a lot of established businesses just drive like a lot of traffic in. And
they're still making money even though the daters get a discount.
Yeah. So, and then you kind of have a few different distinct types of businesses, right? So you have restaurants that have smaller margins. You have like experiences like rock climbing, right, where you have huge margins.
Right.
And then you have like entertainment, which is somewhere in between. But basically every deal that we try to work out with people, we want to make profitable both for them and for the daters. And then we don't have to be as aggressive as like a Groupon, because when people are dating, they're not just looking for a discount, they're looking for an experience. So it's more about, hey, I'm going to take somebody someplace cool than it is just about how do I get a buy one, get one free off of corn dogs or whatever, you know?
Right. So if I want to go rock climbing and I use the Doorstep app, take a date, can I do that date multiple times and continue getting the discount? Or is it a one-time like exposure to this event and then next time full price?
So it depends how businesses want to set it up. But they can have it go for one time and then slightly higher the next time to drive repeat purchases, where some of them just want to have you go in as many times as you can. Yeah.
And have you teamed up primarily with event-type venues? Have you also done restaurants? What type of businesses have you partnered with?
Yeah, so those 3 different categories we've done something in. So we have a lot of restaurants. We have a lot of like experiences. And then we have a lot of like event-based things. And so... Do you feel like there's a lot of competition? So I don't know if you've heard of like the company Hooked, I think is one, or maybe that's not the right name. There's like a 2-for-1 as well app that has like food discounts all the time. Have you seen those? Yeah, I've seen those, but in my head, the competition is what you're actually considering on a Friday night, right? And what you're thinking about with dating. And so like I don't know, are you familiar with like the jobs to be done theory?
I'm not.
Okay, so Clayton Christensen has this theory that like consumers, like what you're actually marketing towards or your actual competition is, let me see if I can frame this. So
Sure.
if he has this example of a restaurant, right? And so in the morning, people come into this restaurant and they get milkshakes that are really thick. And in the evening, they get these really small milkshakes. And so like he was saying like, why are people coming in the morning for this and doing this? It's like, well, it's because they're on a morning commute and they want something thick and they want something that would last the whole commute. And so the competition for that wasn't really like, oh, I'm going to go get a breakfast sandwich or something else. It's like, what can I get that is going to last my whole commute? That's like the job that they're trying to accomplish. And so with dating, right, like the job that we're trying to accomplish is people on a Friday night, they're saying, well, what are we going to do tonight? And so our real competition is what are you thinking? Oh, what are we going to go do tonight? And so when you talk to college students, nobody, they're like, oh, let me go check the mailer and see what coupons are in there. Or like, let's go find out what's on 2 for $1, right? They're thinking basically like, what can we go do tonight that's like an actual experience and actually pretty cool.
Sure. Awesome. So let's see. So what industry is this?
So we're definitely in like the dating industry, but it also crosses over into like entertainment and food. So, but that's what I'm focused on is just the dating application of that, right?
Okay. So the market that you're looking at is primarily college students, or are you just looking at couples who want to go on dates?
We're more broadly like couples that want to go on dates. And then like our demographic right now definitely skews younger because you can only solve for one at a time.
Right.
Because the needs of college-age daters overlap with older daters, but not that much because older daters want to do things that are more expensive or like things that are more memorable, like, and then the younger daters are just looking for something between like $15 and $30, you know?
And that fits better for your business.
Yeah, currently.
Okay. And so did you guys start with an app, a website? How did this idea come into existence?
So my friend had this idea of doing some type of dating event where we would charge people to come to it. And then that kind of morphed into like, hey, why don't we set people up on dates and charge them every month? And so we started out doing that where we just knock on doors in Rexburg and say, hey, if we set you up on 4 dates a month, would you pay us $15? and we'd go door to door and we'd swipe credit cards and like it actually worked.
Wait, so you were connecting people to go on dates?
Yeah, so we were just we got a pool of willing people, right? And we charged them all $15, and then we'd set them up on a little Excel sheet, and my business partner would decide like who looks cute together.
Yeah.
And so we did that for a while, and then like things are going pretty good with that, and so we built a website.
How long were you doing that for?
Like that version of it, probably like 2 months, and then we decided we need something a little bit better. Like it was a massive amount of work to do that manually.
Sure.
And so then we decided that we wanted to go build a website because we thought that'd be easier than an app. And so we went around the computer science building and just basically asked everybody like, hey, who do you know that is the best programmer that you know? And then eventually we wound up with our programmer, Garrett. And he's still with you today? Yeah, he's still with. Well, it's probably because like we had a fairly intense like interview process because we talked to him and we said, hey, basically, what are you doing for the next 10 years? And like, can you commit your whole life to this and all that other stuff? Like, because they were super hyped up on it. Yeah. And he just answered, yep. And it's been pretty true over the course of the past however long.
Cool.
And so we did that, and then we basically had a website where it would send you a text every week and say, hey, do you want to go on a date this week? And if you said yes, it would set you up in a blind group. And then we'd send people out like that, and then that was going fairly well. So then we decided to build an app.
Yeah, and were there a decent amount of people using it?
Yeah, there's a good chunk of people, and obviously if you're charging $15 a month, you don't need the whole world to use it to have like a start, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then we decided to build an app, which we thought we could get done in 2 to 3 weeks, and it took us 8 months to get it right.
Yeah.
And then, so then the matching stuff, it was.
Why did that take so long?
Just, it was our first time doing it, and so like you have to learn, like the biggest challenge I think with building an app is knowing what the right process is to build and what you actually want to build, as opposed to like the technical part of the app isn't really that challenging once you have somebody that knows how to do it.
Just need to know what features you want.
Yeah, and then like especially something as complicated as setting people up on blind group dates, like you can get really deep into that. Because we had like a whole algorithm that would like give people like a look score, and then like, well, because you think about it, if you're going on a blind date, you're hoping that the person that shows up is actually interesting to you, or you're not going to use it very long.
Right.
So we had like look scores and like personality tests and like all this different stuff to try to triangulate who's going to be awesome for you.
Okay. But they wouldn't know what the other person looks like. You would just see the look score.
Well, you would just get a phone number.
Yeah.
So like our dream is to like automate like or to make it so you meet incredible people and you don't even know why they're incredible, right? And then we're just having the app do this massive amount of work on the back end.
Yeah.
To do things. But like, so we launched the app after 8 months, and then it was just different. It was different when you have an app versus like a text message, because a text message is beautiful because you don't expect them to send you a photo. But like as soon as you launch an app, like people are used to the conventions of apps and stuff.
Yeah.
And so they're expecting more and more information in order to be interested to do this. And then like, how are you? So eventually, like we just figured out like either we need to be the desperate dating service, right? Like where like you just, when you want to go on a date, you just use us and you don't care what they look like. And then the best thing for that is really just sending text and doing that. Or we would need to out Tinder. And we'd have to be really, really good at that, where it's like, and so we were stuck right in the middle, and we just decided like, we don't want to be a middle of the road business in an oversaturated market. But we had this other half of the app, which was like the businesses and giving you ideas to go do stuff. And like that was doing really well.
So you had kind of those two features, setting people up on dates and then connecting them with businesses.
Yeah, and so we thought those would like go perfectly well with each other, but they really don't, because on one side, setting people up or giving people deals for dates and stuff is like, it's better the more people that use it, right? Like married, single, whatever, you know? And then you have this matching feature which prevents married people from using the app. And so we just eventually discovered that those two things were at odds. And so we had some big, long conversations and then just decided that we wanted to be the best in the world at something. And we had a wide open field because there's no true like competitor. There's no direct competitors, at least in that space. Whereas like with matching and dating apps, there's a ton. Like it's a really bloody field. Yeah. And so, so that's why we decided to shift in that, and that's why we're doing what we're doing today.
So how long into the business were you when you guys made that pivot?
Like a year and 8 months or something. Okay. So we're way into it, yeah.
So that took some time to figure that out. Did you have to go in and redo the app again?
Yeah, so basically in January when people came back to the app, the whole matching thing was just cut. So we just had we had everything that we needed. We just had to cut everything else out.
Gotcha.
And it was really sad too, because like I was talking to some girl like just as we were making that decision. She's like, "Oh yeah, I've been on 3 doorstep dates, like this month, and it's like so awesome," and blah blah blah. So there's like definitely a good user base that used it, and is something that was pretty lovable. I feel like because it was just fun and it was so simple, but
gave you the date ideas too, and
yeah. But it's like you've got to like it would just like you've got to I think just cut. I don't know. Like you have to make like our long-term goal, right, wasn't to be the world's biggest dating app in Rexburg. It's like we want to be a huge business and we want to scale. And so like we realized like if we don't cut this off, we're never going to be able to do it. So,
right. You had to specialize.
Yeah.
So what is your game plan long-term with this business?
So right now we're like right in the midst of proving out a repeatable model in different places. So Rexburg is a tiny town in Idaho, right? And so we wanted to come to Utah and prove it out on a bigger market that has similar characteristics to what we're used to. Because we know we need to iron out like the process, because ours is a highly local thing.
Yep.
Because you have to have the local businesses and you have to have the user base to make it interesting for those businesses. So something like ours, you have to roughly go area by area. We're hoping that, so over the next few months, we're trying to find a repeatable process that we can scale states instead of cities, like at the same time. And so that's what we're working through. But long term, yeah, we want to be in everywhere, at least in the US, and then figure out what a global market looks like for that. But right now, we're just highly focused on how do we build something that's rinse and repeat that can work on a huge level.
Yeah. And you mentioned that when you were hiring your coder that you were saying, hey, you ready for 10 years?
Yeah.
Do you plan on being with this company for a long period of time? Do you want to sell it eventually? What's your game plan with that?
Yeah, so the whole point for me is like I want to build something that's meaningful and that should exist. And the goal has been to build a 100-year company. Whether or not like I'm with this particular company for a good chunk of that 100 years or whatever is debatable, but like I want to build something that outlasts me, and like I love the thought of people being able to use the app, or like people being able to send their kids to college, or like pay for their lives based off of the company that we built 50 years ago, or like a great place to work. And so
building an enduring organization, helping employees of the company provide for their families and all that.
Yeah, and then there's something cool about it too, because like the whole focus is like we're not focused on like, oh, we want to bring the whole world $5 cheaper ice cream or whatever. It's like our whole aim is like we want to help people do things that they love with the people that they love, right? And that's a very meaningful thing to me.
Sure.
And I think what we're doing is we're making it so easy to go out and to have cool experiences that we're really, I mean, competitors, right? Like I think our competitors are more like Netflix and like that stuff that you would be doing on a Friday night instead of actually going experiencing the world. And so anyway, that's kind of like the long-term vision is just, and our goal is to remove every obstacle to great dating. That's kind of our mission statement. And so I think there's a lot of things that fit into that. And as we build a bigger and bigger platform, there's some really cool stuff you can do as you get scale. Right. And so that's the long-term game plan.
So this kind of business model, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg model, right? Where you have, in order to partner with companies, they want to make sure that you have users. And in order to have users, you need to have a lot of companies that are working with you, right? So how have you gone about managing that?
Well, there's a book called Crossing the Chasm, right, where you have the early adopters, and so you kind of have like this chasm that you're trying to cross, because like we're trying to get to the early majority and then over this thing. So there's a group of people out there, thank goodness, that are willing to take risk on stuff. So like when we're coming to Provo, right, like the first few months that we're here, there's just people that think the idea is cool and they'll just do it. And so we have to go get businesses first. And so we could leverage a little bit of the proof of Rexburg, right? Right. Going into the next area. But you really you have to have people that are willing to take a gamble. And there's enough businesses to get to like the critical mass, which for us in an area is probably like 20 to 30 businesses. So then when you get on the app, you're like, oh, okay, there's stuff to do here. I could use this for a while. Yeah. And so that's kind of how we've done it, is we say, hey, okay, let's go get 30 of those early adopter businesses on. Yep. And then just pound it with users, right? And then make these 30 businesses super happy about what we're doing. And then it gets easier. And it gets easier the more that your name gets out there and the more that word spreads. So that's kind of how we're jumpstarting it. But yeah, it definitely makes it, I mean, it's a lot harder of a business model, I think, than just building a product and selling it.
Yeah. So you moved out here to Provo you said like 6 months ago. Was it 6 months? Is that what you said?
Yeah, about 6 months. So.
And so have you been able to get those businesses, those 30 businesses or so that you've wanted here?
Yeah, so it was different, like, and running 2 cities is different than just one, obviously. But yeah, so we've been able to get those 30 businesses, and then as the semester started, is really because we're still focused on college students, at least for the short term.
Yeah.
And so like it was getting those businesses during the summer and then launching it here. So we're just finally getting to our beachhead in Provo.
Gotcha. So tell me how you make money. How does your company make money?
So every time that somebody purchases on the app, we get a percentage of that. And then also we sell ad space. So there's people that want to get people directly into their business, right? And they're willing to incentivize people to come in. And there's also people that want to reach our audience that are like related services. Because you think about dating, like there's a lot of people that want to reach daters, like from dating coaches and people that do wedding rings and bridal stuff. So there's people that you can, that would want to run ads on an app like that.
And so I'm curious. So let's say that normally I go rock climbing. It costs $25, right, for a date night or whatever. And with you guys, it's 20 or 15. So we're already cutting the margin a little bit of the rock climbing space, and then you guys also take a cut of that amount. So I imagine it's a pretty small cut that you guys take with that.
Yeah, I mean, relatively.
Yeah.
So,
it's a transactional business basically. And as for ad space, what are most local companies like looking for users in order to buy ads from you?
So what we have that's interesting to business owners is basically like we can segment by single or married, right?
Yeah.
And then like people that are targeting college students, right, based on those demographic lines, that's what's interesting to them to advertise.
So it's very targeted.
Yeah, it's just a unique space, right? Like why LinkedIn ads are better than Facebook ads is because, or it just depends what you're doing, right? So like if you're trying to target professionals, LinkedIn is the place to be. If you're trying to target like a very broad audience, Facebook is the place to be. If you want to target daters, Doorstep really is the place to be because this is people that have the intent to buy and the intent to date. So.
Sure. Very cool. So I'd love to hear when you go into a business and you want them to partner with you, what do you pitch them? And what do you tell them? What does the conversation look like?
Yeah, so basically I tell them what the app is, and
you try to sit down with like the owner of the business usually?
It's usually the owners of businesses, unless you're working with a bigger organization and they have specific people for marketing.
And do you reach out to them by just going into their business and say, hey, is the owner here? Or what have you done?
Yeah, so I mean, initially that's what we've been doing, but like that's not, I mean, like with what I've been saying about like scalable stuff is like you don't want to have to send people in to go talk to every business in a town in order to make things work. So what we're transitioning into is more referral based and like kind of an inbound strategy. Because at a certain point you realize that all the businesses are the same. Like a lot of the business owners want the exact same stuff.
Yeah.
And so if you can reach them at a time that they're trying to make a decision about marketing or things like that, then you don't have to go door to door for the rest of your life.
Right.
But yeah, so that's essentially how we've done it. So like, and what we do, you know, Brian Chesky, he's the CEO of Airbnb.
Okay.
But his thing is always do things manually before you code it. And he's like, try to push it as far as you can manually first. And it's brilliant if you're building software because the time to code stuff is very precious. Just because like you can build basically anything, but you can't build everything. And so you try to do things manually. But anyway, the way that works with like types of processes like this is like, at first when we're building out a new system to do things, like we're going to go knock every door and we're going to do it manually.
Yeah.
And then you build code to do that same thing so that human beings don't have to do it in the future.
That's a cool idea. So you sit down with the owner of the business and what does that conversation look like?
So basically it's like we'll show them like how the app works, how they like the transactions are processed, and then like kind of some of the results from from other businesses, right? Like, oh, hey, we went and got this rock climbing gym, 200 people in the first month, or 200 couples or whatever. And you show them like kind of like the related business to what they're doing. And then
they've been pretty easy to partner with.
Yeah, so it depends on your business, right? Like places like rock gyms, right? It's like, oh yeah, like let's slash it in half. Like more people, so it's basically taking your marketing dollars, right, and putting it to direct ROI. So like I guess like that is one of the core value propositions of it is like, yeah, you could go spend money on Facebook ads, right, and maybe you'll get people in or maybe you won't. But it's like, let's take what you would have spent on a Facebook ad and let's just say, just pay us that when we send people into your store. And so you're just guaranteeing them results as opposed to like...
They'll pay for it basically after it's guaranteed.
So like, that's why they're willing to discount stuff, because you're just taking, oh, hey, yeah, this is what we're going to spend on our marketing, and let's just put that into a discount and drive people into the store. Yeah,
that's great. Great value proposition for the businesses. And then you also have a great value proposition for the customers, which is, hey, if you want to go do something for a date, you can do it cheaper using us, right?
Yeah, and I think the more that I've gone along, too, is like people are not very... creative or like, well, I mean, in general, like the general populace, like they're trying to think of what to go do for date night, and it's actually a big thing, because it's like, oh, okay, I gotta Google it, I gotta ask my friends, I gotta see what events are going on this weekend. And so it's a big value to just like, hey, we'll give you the idea, and you can purchase it right on this app real quickly and just show it when you show up. And then so I like, it really is a big service for people that are like going out and trying to date. So
sure, very cool. So did you start this business while you were in college?
Yeah,
you did. What is your advice to people who are interested in entrepreneurship? They want to start a company, but they don't know if they should wait until after college, kind of get some education under their belt first. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think now with my perspective, like I wouldn't change anything, like as far as like I've known that I've wanted to be an entrepreneur for forever.
Yeah.
And like that's the reason I went to college. It's like how I structured everything, and it's just like what I knew I was going to do.
Is that from the time you were a kid, or is it?
Yeah, for quite a while. Like my dad started a computer software training company in the 90s. And it did really, really well. And then he sold it, and it was semi-retired since he was 35, right? And so that was kind of like my model of how the world should work. It's like, oh yeah, it's like, let's front load the risk in life. Let's go do something big and figure out the money problem early on. So then the rest of, because he went out and he made like independent films, and one that actually got in theaters or whatever. Like it was never that cool, but like it was cool. So just like my model for life is just like, okay, build something that can scale, and then go do whatever the heck you want for the rest of it, you know?
Yeah.
So I forgot what the original question was.
The original question is advice to aspiring college-aged entrepreneurs.
Yeah, so I would just go all in. Like, though, like looking back, I wish I would have like piled up a whole bunch of cash, just because. Like
money disappears.
Money disappears, and like time goes on, right? And so like it would have to get to this point where we're at now, had I had just a big pile of money. Like our programmer, like he was into Bitcoin before it was cool and stuff, and so he had a big like stack of money, you know.
Oh,
so he's just been living off of whatever, because it takes
amazing.
Because like basically our company like the main cost of it would be to pay a software developer, but like since we're working together, so the main cost has just been time. And so where other companies are spending like $50,000 a month on software development, we're just not, you know. But on the flip side, I wish I would have had a whole bunch of like reserves of just cash, so then I could just not have to work like part-time stuff while I'm doing it, or like just have to worry about where money's come as we're getting the traction to take off.
Right.
But,
just to pay for living expenses, right?
Yeah, and so, but I do think there's a value of just doing it, though. I mean, we'd even like, so even before Doorstep, I had been doing stuff like I tried to make an app for finding cool, or it was basically Tinder for buying and selling apartment contracts. And so I did that for about 2 years.
Oh, cool.
And I competed in the Utah Entrepreneurship Challenge and got pwned.
Really?
Like I lost really bad.
Dang.
So like, yeah, like I showed up and I'm talking to some guy at dinner, right? And he has a Juris Doctorate in business, and I'm from like this. I went to Snow College before, which is a 2-year college out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
And like, so I'm at this dinner. He's just like, and yeah, like we have this tracking device installed on every light in Salt Lake City. You know, like I'm like, yeah, like this is gonna help people sell their contract. You know, and so, but anyway, but the fact was like, so it took me 4 years from losing that competition like crazy to going to the Idaho Entrepreneurship Challenge.
Yep.
And being to know like, okay, so this is how you win a competition, and this is how you prepare, and like and all that stuff. And so I just think the value of that can't be understated, like of what I learned over a 4-year period. Mm-hmm. And then taking from inexperience and just wishful thinking and hope, right, to being just like, no, this is how you run the process and you do it, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why I think if people are really going to be entrepreneurs, they should do it in college.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I could have sat and read books for a long time, which I do. I read tons of books. Mm-hmm. But practical experience and, like, actually doing it is worth a whole lot more. It's like trying to, like, you're never going to read your way into being the world's greatest guitarist. Mm-hmm. And it's the same thing with entrepreneurship, I think.
Yeah. Love it, man. If you have to share one life lesson from all of the experience that you've had in the past, 5-6 years with young entrepreneurs, what would you share? I think one that you shared already was stockpile cash, right?
Yeah.
Any other one that comes to mind besides that?
I think the value of listening, like first getting smart people on your team and then listening really well. Because in the early part of it, like I just was like so set on my ideas. Like we started this white glove cleaning business. So like at the end of the semester, at least in Idaho, like everybody's got to get their apartment cleaned. Yep. And everybody has to do it. Everybody hates to do it. And everybody's in a hurry to get it done, which is a perfect trifecta of like getting people to pay you to do something, right?
Yeah.
So we start this business. We get like, we market it like crazy. We get like 70 people to sign up all on the same day, right? So we have 70 jobs to do, and it's just me and my partner, right? So then we're hurrying and we're like trying to hire anybody that breathes or whatever to come do this thing. And then we stay up till 2 a.m. the night before, and like we're just planning this whole thing out, like trying to schedule all this stuff. And then the day of, like 3 people quit that were supposed to work 8 hours each. Oh. And so like we start getting these phone calls, like phone call after phone call of like, where's my cleaner? Like, da-da-da-da-da. And like, just, I mean, people that are rightfully angry because they paid all this money online, and we had multiple price points and all this other stuff. And then like, it was like one of the like for like weeks after, I'd had PTSD every time my phone vibrated. It's just like, oh no, is this another person? But basically, so we just go through that, and then like he's super mad at me, and like at the end of the night, like till 12 p.m. So we're just scrubbing toilets and doing all this stuff, and so he calls me up crying, and he's like and he quits, right? He's like, I'm done, like I'm not gonna help this, and there's still more jobs to do the next day.
This is your friend?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
then we're like and then I'm up at 12, like telling the people the next day of why we can't go do their cleaning job and all this stuff.
Oh shoot.
And so, but basically, like, what we sat down, like, after all that the smoke kind of cleared from that, we sat down and we said, like, well, why did this happen? Like, why did, you know? And a lot of it came down to just communication, right? Like, I wasn't valuing, like, what he was saying, like, kind of like the warning signs, right? Mm-hmm. And so we learned a lot about, like, actually, like, just listening to each other. And then now, like every meeting that we have as a company, we start out by saying like why we're on the same team as each other, and then like something. So first we say like, what's the mission of Doorstep? To remove every obstacle to great dating, and then second we say like, why are we on the same team with the other people? Mm-hmm. And then that really just helps us center on the fact that like, oh, we're on, like, everybody's smart here. We're all working for the same purpose.
Working together, yeah.
Yeah, like let's focus and just solve problems, you know.
Awesome. I love it. What's the best way to learn more about Doorstep, Bruce?
So we're on the App Store and on the Play Store. If you just search Doorstep, it comes up. We also have doorstepdates.com.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, sweet.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thank you guys again for listening. I love you. Have a good one.